ACC kickoff day 2 in Charlotte, and joining us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline, our friend Roddy Jones. Then you're actually shooting up the charts and our favorite person to talk to because you gave me the highest compliment anybody could have ever given.
Well, it was true. It's that you guys have the best setup on Radio Row, and that is the ultimate compliment. You've got Topps baseball cards. We've got color changing. These color changing cups.
Yeah.
My girls love these. You guys will be my girls' favorite show.
Perfect.
In the world,
Love
including any show that I'm on, because of these color changing cups.
Well, nothing tops Bluey. I've heard that Bluey is like the top rated
That's
kid
true.
show these days.
It's good. It's
a good show.
But Bluey never gave color changing.
You know
cups.
what? That's a really good point. That's a really good point. All right, man. So I feel like Clemson got it. Florida State, yeah, they're back, etc. What are we missing? What are we missing at kickoff so far? What are we not talking about?
Oh man, it's a good question. I think that we talk about this like it's a 2-horse race and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Like those are the only 2 teams that are capable of making the ACC championship game, and I don't believe that. I think that you have 3 other teams with the potential of a 4th, but like Miami's burned me enough where I'm not even going to mention them in the conversation. But 3 other teams, they also play both Clemson and Florida State, so that kind of eliminates them. But 3 other teams that have a real shot. I think Carolina's got a real shot.
Agree.
I think Pitt's got a real shot.
Agree.
And I think NC State's got a real shot.
Oh, you don't have my other red and white team.
Louisville?
Louisville.
I am not ready to jump in on Louisville yet.
It
is
the
100% the schedule.
Well, they also got 24 guys out of the portal.
Exactly. So what do I do with that? Like, how do I evaluate what they're going to be? I don't know. I look at the schedule. I'm like, oh, they won 8 games last year, so sounds about right. Like,
with not even really liking
more.
their coach,
right? Yeah,
having some injuries. And
All right, so for our purposes, I am curious about State because Carolina's getting all the run because they got Drake May.
Yep.
And people are curious about how things are going to run with Chip Lindsey.
As am I.
People are also curious with all the transfer portal action for the secondary, how that's, with Gene Chizik, how is that defense going to improve? They got nowhere to go but up, obviously. Right. State, I think people have forgotten State because State had a window. They missed opportunity. Last year is a Rorschach test.
It's weird. State's season's really weird when you look at it.
When you actually look at NC State's season in context, I actually consider it a success.
It should have been a 10-win team.
But they had 5 different quarterbacks get 5 wins, and you had dramatic wins over ECU.
4.
Is it 4?
Yeah.
Why did I say 5? My bad. So you had ECU and Carolina, bookending this crazy season with all the quarterback injuries.
On a
everything
kick.
else.
On a missed kick, no less.
And people acted as though our little curse reverse didn't work. Okay? Anyway.
Could have been a lot worse.
So because of that 2-year pandemic window that they had built this deep team and they ran it back, I don't think anybody knows what to make of this group.
Yeah.
And Brennan Armstrong, Robert Anai is supposed to be, the special sauce for the offense this season. Defense has a lot of experience, even if you don't recognize a lot of these guys because they're all coming up. To me, they're actually one of the more intriguing teams, and we're not just saying that because they're based in the triangle. I guess you're seeing it the same way.
I absolutely do, and I think NC State's potential entirely lies on what they can do with Brennan Armstrong on offense. I am not concerned at all about that NC State defense. I think they'll take a slight step back because that's just natural. But it's not because they're not deep. I think the defensive line could be one of the best in the league, certainly top 3, up with Florida State and Clemson. You look at the linebacker room, and yes, losing Drake Thomas is a significant loss, especially because that dude was the defensive player of the year in the conference last year. No offense to Elijah Cansey, it was Drake Thomas. Losing Elijah Moore is massive, but the 2 guys that are replacing him played a ton 2 years ago when Elijah Moore and Peyton Wilson were out. So they've gotten game experience. You look at that defensive line, and I think Davin Vann is probably the guy who we're not talking enough about on defense, and the step that he could take sort of coming out of the shadow of the guys I just mentioned and being the guy on that defense. And then they've got the best corner in the league in Aiden White on the back end. Now, I am concerned probably isn't the right word, but they're replacing a lot in the secondary. Again, guys that have played, though, are replacing them. So Tony Gibson does a fantastic job. They play great defense. My question is, who are the playmakers on offense? And if they can find those and somehow get Brennan Armstrong back to 2 years ago, Brennan Armstrong, where he threw for 4,500 yards while playing 10 and a half games. Like, it's just an insane rate. Then I think they can absolutely be in the conversation to be in the conference championship game.
Ronnie Jones, ACC champion, joining us here on Ovius plus Chilio. What do you think now in this new divisionless world? You were a guy on the coastal side before Clemson and Florida State really got hot. You got your title, though.
Yep.
So what do you think now? Because you're saying that we should be thinking about more teams that could be in this championship game than we're really talking about. First of all, you played. Where didn't you go in your career?
Maryland.
That was it?
That was it.
Okay.
That was it. And they went there when I was redshirted, and we played Maryland my senior year. So I played against every team.
Oh, because you were in the 12-team league.
I only missed the trip. Yeah, I only missed the trip to Maryland.
Okay. So what do you think of this? I love, first of all, it was my schedule model. I'm mad that Jim did not give me a point to the passer. Maybe I didn't go to Carolina. Like, you can't get the point to the passer if you didn't go to Carolina. I should totally get that. No, but I love the schedule model. I love that all these players are going to be able to go and see all of the different spots in the ACC. I think it's awesome. But I also love, like, hey, let's just put the two best teams in the title game. Yeah. It just seems more fair.
It definitely is. I look at it from the first angle that you said. From a player standpoint, you should go to everywhere in the league.
Yes.
If you play at Duke and you never get to go to Clemson, like when Clemson's great.
Yeah.
Did you really play in the league? Like we played in Blacksburg when Tyrod Taylor was there. We played in Tallahassee with Christian Ponder at quarterback, and as they were building that thing, we played in the early Dabo era at Clemson, and so you kind of saw all of those at the ground up. And also, conversely, if you play at Florida State and you never go to Wallace Wade,
right?
Did you really play in the league? Because that's an experience. That's an experience in this league. But if you have never made the long walk to the visitors' locker room at halftime, gotten in there and looked up at the clock and seen that there's only 9 minutes left in halftime,
we better start walking back.
Have you really lived? Like, you have not played in this league. So, and it gives you an opportunity to see sort of some of the stadiums, arenas, fan bases that we don't talk as much about. Mm-hmm. NC State being chief among those. I didn't go to NC State until my senior year. And I was like, where's this place been all my life? I loved playing in Carter Finley. And I think we had a good day that day after Russell Wilson torched us the year before.
Yeah.
So I'm curious.
So it's 11? Your senior year was 11?
Yeah, 11.
He's youngin', man. He's a youngin'.
Oh, yeah.
Did you always want to be a running back?
My dad was a running back in college, so I feel like it was preordained. I was there was sort of a self-selection part of it, or maybe a natural selection part of it, where it's like, all right, you can throw, but you're never going to be tall enough to be a quarterback.
So,
you can catch, but like not really well enough. And slot receivers weren't a thing. Like we had not entered the age of Welker when I was getting into my into like high school, or we had just started it. So like I wasn't going to be a receiver because I wasn't tall enough. So it was corner, strong safety. I guess I could have played free too, but corner, safety, and running back were the choices. And then my high school head coach made the decision because I was a cornerback.
Okay.
Until my sophomore year, and then he was like, you know what? We need somebody to run the ball. We're going to run the ball a lot. You go there.
If you were coming up today, would you say, I don't want to be a running back because of the economics of it?
At a young age, I don't know that I would have thought about the economics of it.
You just want to play.
So it's a great question. I probably would have ended up as more of a slot type receiver, I think.
Okay.
I think that's where everybody wants to be now.
Exactly. And that's mainly, it's not as much because of the economics. It's more because of 7-on-7.
Yeah.
Like that is the culture that you would grow up in now.
I didn't think about that.
And so to make yourself valuable in 7-on-7s, like running backs aren't doing anything.
But what I find strange, so like what's going on in the NFL right now, it started with Christian McCaffrey and the contract that the Panthers gave him. People were like, how could you, he's a running back? I'm like, he's not. I mean, in title he is, but look at all the things that he does. You can line him up anywhere. And now with Saquon Barkley, he's been the offense for the Giants. And meanwhile, they're giving Daniel Jones like another chance. And they're giving him a bunch of money. And, you know, they're dicking around with what they're doing with running backs, you know, with the franchise. It's like it's the only position in the NFL that's actually seen a decrease in value with the franchise tag, which is crazy to me. And given what that position means to an offense, of course, the cynical way of looking at it will point to a Super Bowl winning team with the running back as the MVP. Right. It's like, y'all, it's not that simplified. I mean, hell, you mentioned Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's probably got, what, 2 Super Bowls if they hand it off to Marshawn Lynch?
Yeah.
So, anyway. So, I was just kind of curious from your...
Not probably.
Yeah, yes. What I was just, from your position, how you see this, if it just kind of changes even people who want to be running backs going forward.
Probably, with all the attention that it's getting. I don't know what you do about it, though. I think you would have to get rid of the position-based franchise tag in some way, like make it an offensive skill, non-quarterback, make it full lineman, although like a guard would never see a franchise tag again, and probably a running back wouldn't either, because you're not paying that guy $20 million.
True.
So and the running backs probably would enjoy that, but I don't know how you get it back. I think it's a bad. What's happened with the running back room is sort of it's a symptom of bad timing. Because when all of this was negotiated, there was a devaluing of the running back, and it was running back by committee, but they were still just running backs. Like, you didn't see a lot of these guys that were splitting out, and guys like a Marshall Faulk, for example, were rare. They existed, but they were rare.
They were rare, yeah.
And then what we've seen over the last, I don't know, really in the Christian McCaffrey era, has been a resurgence or maybe an emergence of what all a running back can do to an offense. So I think it's sort of bad timing, because you've got Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, you've got Bijan Robinson coming up through, like Saquon Barkley, and we're in this sort of era where you've got these really good backs that are super special, and maybe we just didn't have that throughout the early teens when they were sort of doing this. But I don't know what you do about it, man. I really don't, because that position still is like, it's a sexy position still, and I don't think guys are going to say, I don't want to be a running back because of the economics long term, because ultimately you want to get there. And being a running back, if you're special at that position, helps you get there. And then you worry about the economics.
Can we talk a little existential crisis? Do you have some time for that?
Existential crises.
Okay. So Eric McLean, our friend.
He's having one?
No.
Oh, okay.
He's our avatar for Clemson, right? I mean, it's always champagne and roses with Clemson, right?
Yeah.
Like, that guy, he's living the life. So Georgia Tech, though, I'm curious, because we've had some super honest conversations with Josh Pastner last basketball season.
Yep.
And he was concerned. I'm concerned, because I'm old school ACC. I like it when Georgia Tech's good. I wonder, though, 2009 was not that long ago.
No.
Yeah, but Caleb was 1.
No, I know, but
Jackson was 1 year.
NC State hasn't won an ACC title since 1979. North Carolina hasn't won an ACC title since 1980.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So Georgia Tech has had recent success. Okay?
And that was in an era where they were playing in their second ACC championship game in 4 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or 3 years.
And CPJ went back again in 12, right?
Yeah,
Or
there's an
15,
asterisk
there's
next to
another
that
one.
one.
Yeah, but that's
14
fine.
was the legit one, yeah.
But my point is, this is a program that has been competitive. I don't know, because of the layered academic issues, and you could speak to that and maybe explain that to people when we talk about Georgia Tech academics and what the barrier is there, and the NIL. Yeah. I just don't see, whoever the version of, the big, what's the Diaz? Is that what's the guy's name down in Miami with all the money?
Oh, I forgot
the hospital guy.
I know you're talking about. I forgot the guy's name.
No, not that everyone has one of those. But,
I can yell at Joe Rose and ask him.
Georgia Tech, to me, it just feels like Joe was saying yesterday about Northwestern. Maybe they decide this isn't for us anymore. Ruiz.
Thank you.
Yeah. Maybe they just maybe Georgia Tech and Boston College decide maybe this isn't for us.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not trying to be a jerk.
No.
I'm just trying to have a sober look at what Georgia Tech looks like in the NIL era.
I don't think it's tenable for Georgia Tech to ever say this is just not for us.
Okay.
Because you've got schools around, obviously the University of Georgia, but like Kennesaw State's in this thing. And so do you want to be passed by Kennesaw State in terms of investment?
Yeah.
And it's a massive fan base. Georgia State's in this thing for the long haul. Like they have just built incredible resources. And so they all want to be at the top level of college sports. So I don't think Georgia Tech will ever completely bow out. Maybe they just won't admit it. Your concerns are very valid. Okay. Academically, like you can get guys in anywhere, like as long as the academic says it's okay. But once you're there, the vast majority of majors at Georgia Tech are bachelors of science, which means you have to take two semesters of calculus. You have to take 2 lab sciences, and you have to pass those classes.
Right.
And you run out of time by the time you're like a junior. you run out of free electives to take before you have to take and pass those classes so you can continue in your core curriculum. That's the issue that Georgia Tech runs into, even if you get guys in the school. So all that
Ovius
being
would
said,
have no chance at even one calculus.
Your boy barely had a chance. All that being said,
on the other hand.
I think Georgia Tech is in a place where if you can find an identity and you can find some consistency and you can be okay doing what Wake Forest has done. Like, I keep telling Georgia Tech people, do not look at Clemson or Georgia. Look at Wake.
Yeah.
Look at State. Like, those are the programs, and Wake more than State. Those are the programs you should model yourself after. You bring in linemen are hard to get. They're in short supply. Although Brent Key's done a pretty good job of getting commitments. But that shouldn't be the foundation, is these big-time linemen that you know are going to be good college players. It should be bringing guys in, redshirting every lineman that comes in, and develop them. And you can find skill guys on the street. Like, skill guy can play him as a freshman. Lineman can play a little bit, redshirt him. Doesn't matter. And you become that sort of program with the depth. And I hope that they get there. You can't do that in the short term.
Yeah.
Like, the era that we live in, you have to have some sort of success early on. I don't know if what Dave Clawson did in the early version of Wake would last at most schools now.
Right.
Barely. Well, I don't know if it barely lasted a week. It definitely lasted because they knew what was going on. But he purposefully redshirted people that could help them win in the early days.
Yeah.
And it helped them in 15, 16, but it didn't help them in 13, 14. So I think Georgia Tech has to sort of take a measured approach of, we'll adopt a lot of that.
Let's take a long view.
We're still going to recruit Atlanta. We're never going to win the NIL battles. But if we pick and choose, there's money at Georgia Tech. And
it's not coming from you, though, right?
Absolutely not, because I ain't got the money. West Durham got the money. but I would say, like, Georgia Tech's donor base is like a very it's like a well. It's not broad, but it's very deep. And so if you can engage those people and get them invested in those things and give them something to believe in, then I absolutely think that you can compete with certainly the mid-tier and maybe the bottom of the top tier occasionally on stuff like NIL. They're doing stuff with facilities. They're handcuffed there a little bit.
You think players care about facilities anymore?
Yeah, definitely.
They do.
I think facilities are now a reason. They're not a reason to say yes. They're a reason to say no.
Yeah.
So you walk into a place and it looks completely different from what I've seen everywhere else. Yeah, it doesn't matter what you're offering. I ain't coming here.
You don't want to slide. You don't want
Exactly.
You don't want a putt course. But if the equipment sucks, if your sleep pod ain't right, well then yeah.
If it doesn't look good on my TikTok, like,
Right.
I can't be